In the realm of human interactions and identity construction, two prominent ideological approaches have shaped our history and continue to influence our present: the common enemy approach and the common humanity approach. These contrasting perspectives offer unique ways to understand and navigate the complexities of diversity, often manifesting along ethnic, sexual orientation, and national lines. The common enemy approach, with its roots in division and prejudice, stands in stark contrast to the common humanity approach, which champions unity, inclusivity, and a celebration of our shared human experience. Common humanity is a secular approach to developing a shared identity for a group, such as a national identity for the citizens of a country, using beliefs and characteristics that are universal to humans to form that shared cultural identity. As traits such as ethnic group, skin color, economic status, sexual orientations, and disabilities cannot be universal to all humans. The shared cultural identity is not built upon these traits. Instead, traits that can be universal, such as having good virtues, are focused on. The ideological foundation for common humanity is built on the concept of liberty, as defined by European Enlightenment philosophers during the 17th and 18th century, such as Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Immanuel Kant, and John Locke, and further refined by later philosophers and statesmen such as Alexander Hamilton, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, George Washington, and Thomas Jefferson during the formation of the United States. These ideas have been championed throughout American history by men such as Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, and Martin Luther King Jr. One of the key attributes of the common humanity approach is to make value judgments about a person based on the content of their character, and not prioritize less significant factors such as their disabilities, sexual orientation, ethnicity, or gender. In defining humanity, the idea is not based solely in legal frameworks for what defines a person, but instead is rooted in acceptance of our shared nature as members of the human species, who have feelings, instincts, and behaviors that are universal to us due to our shared evolutionary history. Although common humanity's development is heavily intertwined with the formation of America, this approach is not exclusive to the United States of America. It also appears in many other countries in the present day as well, due to the influence of the cultural exportation of American ideas and values to other countries. Regardless, every country that practices common humanity has been influenced by the same Enlightenment age philosophers and American politicians who developed it. Although it does not necessarily require a democratic form of governance to exist within a group, common humanity often lends itself to this form of government due to its emphasis on liberty as defined by the Enlightenment age philosophers. Mahatma Gandhi is an example of an Indian political leader who expressed a common humanity approach to the issue of an Indian national identity, and advocated for the formation of a democratic system of self-government in India in order to end the discriminatory ethnic caste system that was widespread in the nation. The adoption of the common humanity approach to the development of shared identity for a group has become a foundational block for the formation of most democracies in the present-day world we live in, and it can be argued without this approach, a democratic government is often unable to stabilize itself, especially in the modern world where so many countries have become melting pots of ethnic groups which must coexist. Let us discuss common enemy frameworks in more detail so we can better understand the merits of the common humanity approach. Common enemy frameworks ask people to set aside their differences to unite as a group against a shared enemy. Thus, the label of common enemy for this approach to shared identity construction. For nations, its primary utility is to recruit people to join a war against another group of people and justify the conquering and enslavement of the shared enemy, although it also finds utility in other political groups seeking to gain influence and power in a society. However, common enemy frameworks can be constructed even in small groups of just two people. That is, a shared identity can be constructed simply through the informal sharing of viewpoints, where those views create an ideology that unites even just two people together as a collective because of their shared hatred of another group, or even just hatred of a single person. This happens frequently in interpersonal relationships. The goal of the hatred does not necessarily need to be to have a violent intent, and can merely be to take actions that inflict a form of social destruction of the target, such as causing a loss of wealth, status, or reputation. The necessary component for common enemy framework is that it unites people together due to common hatred of a mutual foe. In some cases, the common enemy framework convinces an adherent to view someone as a foe they had not previously perceived to be one before they learned the ideology. but frequently common enemy frameworks are crafted to unite existing enemies of a target together as a collective against the target of the pre-existing hatred the enemies already possessed against the target. Common enemy frameworks are frequently very effective at quickly uniting a group of individuals into a collective against the target of the animosity. This is because common enemy frameworks frequently do not ask the adherent to make substantial changes to their pre-existing beliefs, but instead only asks the adherent to add the hatred of the target as yet another belief to their pre-existing collection of beliefs. However, there does exist very sophisticated common enemy frameworks that are designed to convince a person to abandon pre-existing beliefs that would stand in the way of hatred of the target and exchange them for new beliefs that encourage hatred of the target. Examples of sophisticated common enemy frameworks include Nazism and critical race theory, which are both designed to convince adherents to abandon tolerance for a targeted ethnic group in order to foster a deep sense of hatred of that targeted group. The common enemy approach has long been a prevailing method of addressing diversity-related issues between humans, as war has been the primary way to resolve these disputes. This framework encourages individuals to unite against a common adversary, creating a shared identity forged through opposition against a perceived foe that must be defeated. Often this approach has been employed to rally people along ethnic lines, pitting one group against another. Racism, a particularly insidious form of common enemy rhetoric, has historically attributed negative qualities to individuals solely based on their ethnic heritage. Racism is a pervasive issue that has plagued societies worldwide for centuries. This malicious ideology seeks to establish hierarchies of superiority and inferiority based on superficial characteristics, perpetuating stereotypes and prejudice. Racism undermines the very essence of our shared humanity, denying the fundamental truth that we are all human beings deserving of equal rights, dignity, and respect. There are many common enemy adopters who attempt to relabel racism to mean other things so they can dismiss criticism that they harbor racist ideas, but this is the true definition of the word. It is essential to recognize that racism is not confined to overt acts of discrimination or hatred. It can manifest in subtler forms as well. Often individuals who hold racist beliefs attempt to redefine the term or dismiss accusations of racism in order to evade responsibility. However, at its core, racism remains the attribution of negative qualities to a person solely because of their ethnic heritage. The rhetoric of frameworks such as critical race theory, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and other kinds of similar ideologies, which have recently found immense popularity in our republic, are all inherently racist ones, as they claim that people of certain ethnic groups, whites, should be held to blame for what others in that ethnic group have done in the past or even in the present. They believe in a form of blood guilt that people who are born into an ethnic group share, and this is an inherently racist idea, that others should be judged and bear responsibility for injustices of others based on their ethnicity. An extreme example of common enemy approaches to forming shared identity is Nazism, but other groups such as the LGBTQ movement and black separatist groups such as Black Lives Matter and anarchist groups such as Antifa are other examples of a common enemy approach. History is full of many examples of common enemy approaches, as this was the normal way of propagandizing citizens to unite against opposing countries. For example, during the wars of the European Middle Ages, England and France frequently demonized each other in order to rally their populations to support the wars. This has taken place in every culture in all periods of history. Common enemy approaches are actually the most commonplace ones to establish a national identity, and this remains popular today in most countries. The Japanese tend to demonize the Koreans, and vice versa, as do the Chinese tend to demonize the Japanese. In South Africa, South Africans with any Caucasian ancestry are heavily prejudiced against, just as Caucasians did to native populations of South Africans during apartheid. The Israelites and basically all of their surrounding neighbors, from Palestine to Iran, all demonize each other as part of their national identities. In all of these cases, the contemporary prejudices have originated from wars between the ancestors of these groups. It is important to remember that the things which common enemy united groups utilize is an obsessive fixation on differences to create tribalism along these differences. When this kind of common enemy rhetoric is directed at other law-abiding citizens of a democracy, such that ideologies like Nazism and critical race theory encourage, it becomes a threat to the future integrity of any democratic state where these groups are allowed to flourish, for they are anti-democratic by their very nature. These ideologies require the collapse of democracy in order for the policies they champion to be implemented. In the case of Nazism, They deprived ethnic Jews of rights and property in order to prop up ethnic Germans, and in the case of CRT, they wished to deprive Caucasians and Asians of rights to prop up those of African, Hispanic, and Native American descent. In both ideologies, they achieve this by convincing people that the ethnic group they wish to deprive of rights is sinister and evil by virtue of its existence. Likewise, in both ideologies, they went about depriving rights by claiming the political system was engineered to exclusively benefit the ethnic group they wish to discriminate against, thereby convincing others of its illegitimacy and causing the collapse of the democratic state. This is by no means a complete list of historical examples from around the globe. As I mentioned before, common enemy frameworks have been the predominant way that national unity was established. Whether it be Babylonia versus Jerusalem, or Rome versus Carthage, or Shu Han versus Wu, or the Chanca versus the Inca, the history of humanity has traditionally been the story of groups of humans united in their hatred of other humans. This is unfortunate, but it is also normal, for it is how all organisms in nature are, and we alas have not fully rised above it yet. But there is hope that we can overcome the tendency to be common enemies by using a common humanity approach to create group identities.